Hello, friends. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to discuss how to quit porn. If pornography is something that has troubled you and you're ready to stop using pornography, then I'm going to tell you exactly how to accomplish this. And before we do so, I'd like to ask you something. I'd like to ask you if you're on this video right now, most likely you've been watching some of the other videos that we've been publishing. Perhaps you're getting a lot of value out of these videos. I'd like to ask you to subscribe to the channel, to like the video, to make comments, because what's important about this process is to enter into a dialogue. There may be something that I say that you either disagree with, agree with, or have questions about. And when you ask me those questions, you give us all a gift. And the reason why it's a gift is because you give me the opportunity to explain it better, right? If you ask me a clarifying question, what did you mean by this? Why did you say that? I can explain that better. It will benefit everybody else as well. But also, as is the case in every scenario, like in a classroom, your question may also be someone else's question. So when you ask the question, you might be giving us all an opportunity to also answer many other people's question as well. So I really welcome your comments, your agreements, disagreements, but also your questions, because that helps us all grow. You benefit by getting the answer to the question. I benefit by improving my ability to explain. Other people benefit by having also the answer to their questions. We all gain when you participate and engage in this dialogue. So I love having you here in our community. I welcome you. I bless you. I'm so happy that you've chosen to spend a few moments with us here in this community. Blessings, and let's get to work. So today's conversation is about quitting the use of pornography. And before we get to that, I want to tell you something. There are two issues that often come up when people talk about pornography. One is it really bad for me? Is it bad for me, doc? Is it wrong? Is it bad and is it wrong? And those are two very different questions. Is it bad usually refers to the physiology or the neurology of pornography use or masturbation, because the use of pornography goes together with masturbation, right? So then the question is it bad? Am I damaging my body, my brain, my neurology somehow or another? And the other question is it wrong? Now, that question typically is more of a religious question or a moral question. And I want to communicate this to you in a very respectful way, which is this: I do not want to get involved in either one of those questions because it's not the work that I do. I don't tell people that what they do is wrong, and I don't tell people that what they do is harmful or bad, even if I believe it is, because I have found over 25 years of doing this work that that does not help. What I have found to be helpful is to focus all of my energy, all of my attention on the person who tells me, I have been doing this, I tried to stop, and I haven't been able to stop. Can you help me stop? I define that as an addiction, whatever it is that I've been doing, whether it's biting my nails, eating chocolate, pornography, or overeating, or whatever, or fighting with my neighbor. You see, if I recognize that I've been doing something, I want to stop, I try to stop, and I have not been able to stop, that is our own private definition of addiction. I'm not even addressing the dictionary's definition. It's just the way we define an addiction. Look, I want to quit doing this and I haven't been able to. It works in reverse as well. I want to do something, but I haven't been able to do. I say that we have an addiction to the opposite. Like, I want to go to the gym and work out, but I haven't been able to get started. In our language here privately, we say, well, we're addicted to being to not exercising, to being on the couch all day, right? So it goes in both directions, but we call that, we treat that, we pretend, we use the word addiction in that way. In other words, I want to change my behavior. I have tried to change my behavior and I have not been able to. So, for the sake of our conversation here, this is not a technical definition. For the sake of our conversation right here, right now, privately between us, we're going to address what we would call a pornography addiction. That is the person who, for whatever reason, whether it's right or wrong, good or bad, whatever, we're not going to go backwards and discuss that. We're going to say, for whatever reason, I have been using pornography. It's not my case. I'm giving you an example, right? I have been using pornography. I have decided to stop using pornography. I tried to stop using it, but I can't. I keep on going back to it. That's what we're talking about in this video, in this conversation. Okay, if that applies to you, stay with me until the end of this video because we're going to fix this. I'm going to show you how to fix this, and I'm going to offer you an opportunity I'm going to offer you a very special gift. You're going to love this because I absolutely love everyone in our community. I've been doing this work for 25 years, and I have the utmost respect for everybody in this community. People who come to see me, people who are struggling, people who want to change their lives for the better. I have every ounce of respect and admiration for all of you. You have no idea how I feel in my prayers and how much I bless each and every one of you because it is so beautiful what we're all doing together. So, going back to pornography addiction, let's discuss that. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, even before you try to quit porn, what I'm going to suggest to you, so there are a few steps in the process, right? Most people would tell you, just don't do it, be strong. And I don't tell people that because that doesn't work. If you could be strong, if you could not do it, you wouldn't be consulting with that person to begin with. It wouldn't be an addiction if you had the ability to stop, right? So when people tell you, look, it's a mind game, you got to be strong, you got to be headstrong, you have to just not do it, just resist the temptation. That kind of talk either comes from a person who is in denial of their own situation or they don't know what they're saying. Because if it were that easy, then we wouldn't be in this situation to begin with. So no, that's not what I'm going to ask you to do. What I'm going to ask you to do is to pay attention and potentially write down on your journal. Could be your journal could be your phone, right? Some people like to actually write down on a notebook. Some people take notes on their phone, whichever way is easier for you. But pay attention to the moments when you feel like consuming pornography and masturbating. So let's say that you're at work, right? And it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm making this up, and then you think about it and you decide to go to the bathroom and pull out your phone and look at a few pornography things and you want to masturbate in the bathroom. No harm, right? You're in the bathroom, you can do whatever you want. But note that, pay attention to that. I was at work, it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I felt like masturbating. I'm not telling you to do it or not do it. Notice, I'm not even getting there yet. I'm simply asking you to note, to pay attention, to write down, to log when you felt like doing it, whether or not you did it. Pay attention to when you felt like doing it. And then I'd like for you to pay attention to what happened the hour before. So in this example, I'm at work, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I felt like going to the bathroom, looking at pornography and masturbating. Then I look at my day and I said, okay, what happened between 2 and 3 o'clock? Say, oh man, I had a meeting with John. I'm making all this up, right? I had a meeting with John. Then John's secretary walked in. She was wearing a mini skirt. And next thing you know, I wanted to evade the meeting and I wanted to go to the bathroom at 3 o'clock. So I'm making all of this stuff up, but I want to make a point here. Let's first get in the habit, step number 1, of writing down on your journal when you feel like doing porn and masturbating. Let's begin to log that. If you do that for a few days, that becomes a habit. Every time you think of masturbating with pornography, you write down, Thursday, 3 p.m., I felt like masturbating and doing porn. Monday at 8 a.m., I felt like masturbating and doing porn. You write down on a journal. The second step is to pay attention to what happened the hour before the feeling came up. So let's say for 1 week, you simply write down every time you think about it. Again, whether or not you do it, we're not even getting there yet. We're simply going to pay attention to when you want to do it. Then the second week, we're going to pay attention retrospectively, right? So if at the end of the day I notice my journal that I felt like doing porn at 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and 6 o'clock, okay, let me pay attention to, let me think back what happened the hour before. When we do this exercise, it's a mindful exercise, a mindfulness exercise. When we do this, most people tell me that what precedes the urge to engage in pornography and masturbation is some degree, some type of resentment. It doesn't come from a place of love, it comes from a place of resentment. People tell me about, I feel stressed out, I feel the urge to have a release, I feel pressure, I feel constrained, I feel abused. In other words, I have never seen, when we do this exercise at the office, a person tell me, oh, I was in spiritual ecstasy meditating and I was at one with God and suddenly I felt like doing porn and masturbating. It rarely happens unless during their meditation something came up for them that is a source of anger and resentment. But the point I'm making is that the urge to consume pornography and masturbate usually follows a negative internal experience. But what happens is that initially, if you're new to this world, to this universe, we're not aware of what's going on inside of us. Hence the term subconscious. Hence the term mindfulness. In other words, in the beginning, when we're starting out, we don't know why we do it. We just do it. I just feel like it. But then when we become more mindful, when we begin to tap into our own subconscious minds, we begin to pay attention and say, wait a second, I did have a fight with my neighbor. I was upset. I did have some resentment. I was thinking about that time when little Johnny touched me in kindergarten, whatever the case might be, right? All of these are examples that I'm making up. But what I'm saying is this content is going on inside of our minds and we're unaware of it. When you begin to pay attention to this content, we become mindful of this content and we realize that what precedes the urge to consume pornography and masturbate is usually a negative state. By negative, I mean I'm either angry, upset, I feel stressed, I feel constrained in some way. I feel abused in some way, right? I remember stuff that happened that is not good, that kind of thing. You see? So that's the second step. Step number one, I begin to log when I have the urge. Step number two, I begin to, now that I have my log, my ongoing log of every time I have the urge, I begin to pay attention to what happened the hour before, how I felt and what happened. We log that pretty quickly. You're going to have a very clear awareness that the urge to masturbate with pornography follows a negative state. I'm repeating myself intentionally. It doesn't come from love, it comes from resentment. Now, resentment is a generic word that we use in therapy. Resentment, it comes from some stuff about the past. Because love is unique, new, and original. You know, when we love, we feel like giving something in the moment, original, brand new to the person we love, or even if it's ourselves. Resentment is about the past. That day when this happened, that person when they did this to me, when I didn't do that to that person, when I did that to myself. In other words, resentment is always about the past. Resentment. We go backwards. So in our minds, we're constantly mulling over our own past, whether or not we are aware of it. It's there. The content is there. We just may not be aware of it. Hence the term subconscious. But when you become mindful of the content in your mind, you're entering the realm of your own subconscious mind. In other words, you're becoming conscious of your subconscious. Mindfulness is all about paying attention to stuff that is there, but that I normally don't perceive. It's there, I just don't perceive. If it's there and I don't perceive it, by definition, it's subconscious. I'm not aware, I'm not conscious of it, right? Subconscious. And the realm of the subconscious, or the access to the subconscious, is what we call hypnosis. In a sense, you're sort of hypnotizing yourself already, in the sense that you're becoming aware of your subconscious, conscious of your subconscious, and you begin to pay attention to that concept. Quite quickly, you're going to realize, okay, this does have to do with the past. It does have to do with unpleasant memories and behaviors. It does. Now, some of you are going to catch that right away. Some of you already know that. Some of you will take longer to become aware of that, because pleasure and pain become intertwined at the level of the unconscious. This is tough. This is a tough explanation, but abuse and pain awakens the sexual drive. So a kid might be beat up by a parent with a particular belt. Suddenly they have a sexual fetish with that kind of belt as an adult. And again, this is an example. And if you tell them, why do you need that particular belt to become sexually aroused? They'll tell you, I don't know. I just like that kind of belt. I just find it hot. I find it sexy. But when they go into deep hypnosis, in this example, I'm not telling you that every time, I'm giving you an example. They might trace that fetish. That a fetish is like, I need this to become aroused sexually, right? An object or a behavior or something. When they trace that back, they realize, oh yeah, when I was 3 years old, my uncle beat me up with a belt just like that, and it awoke something in me. But that kind of sexual drive is being driven and fueled by resentment and pain, not by love. So the first overall step of the process is to become aware, to become mindful, to become conscious of whether our sexual drive, which we're manifesting within the world of pornography and masturbation, whether that drive is coming from a position of love or a position of resentment. And we're going to become aware of that with the exercises that I just described to you. That's the first step. So the second big step for you, so I'm using the word step here, and I'm using that in two different ways. So there are big steps, and then I break each one of those into little steps, right? So I should say sub-steps, I guess. But the second big thing is, we're going to do something that A Course in Miracle talks about. They call it choosing again. We look back into our lives and we realize that a lot of it has been a mess. No judgment. What do you think my life has been like? A huge mess. The biggest jerk in my life was who? Me. In other words, we look back and we realize that, of course, there are a lot of mistakes as compared to my awareness of what life is today. Clearly, a lot of what I did in the past in my personal life, when I look at that stuff from the perspective of my awareness today, it all seems wrong. Going back to the topic here, now that don't try to do the second step until you do the first, because it won't work. It won't work. We have to actually see what's going on, and that takes a little bit of work. But when you do see that your sexuality, your sex drive has come from a perspective of resentment, as I defined it, as opposed to a perspective of love, then you have an opportunity to choose again. So that choice that you make when you are completely aware, see, that choice is not fear-based. It is not punishment-based. In other words, if a person says, is pornography wrong? Yes, it's wrong. Okay, I choose not to do it again. That choice is fear-based. Is it bad for me? Yes, you're damaging your brain. Okay, I won't do it again. Fear-based, punishment-based. It will never work. That's why I don't even get into this question. Is it bad? Is it wrong? I don't get into that. It will never work. because it will be more of the same. If I if you feel punished for wrong behavior, the only thing that ends up happening is you feel like doing more of the wrong behavior. Whatever the wrong behavior is, I'm not even qualifying it. I'm just saying, you know, that punishment creates more resentment. This is one of the biggest failures in the penal system. For instance, people go to jail for making a mistake and they come out a better criminal in many cases. It's a problem, right? So punishing somebody for what we think is wrong only creates more of the same, and the same applies to you and I. So if you think that what you have been doing is bad, then and you try to stop it, then you're going to have more urges to do that. Whatever it is, whether smoking a cigarette, doing pornography, it doesn't matter. The mechanics is the same. So notice the steps. First, I have to become aware. That takes some work of what my sex drive has really been like. Do this really, really deeply. Then, if you discover that there has been some resentment there, then ask yourself what choice you want to make going forward. Do you want to use your sexuality as an expression of love as opposed to as a tool to deal with resentment? And there's a reason for this when I say choose again, because when we use our sexuality as a tool to deal with resentment, here's the obvious question: does it work? It's not a matter of being right or wrong. Does it work? In other words, if I consume a ton of porn and masturbate a bunch of times, are all of my resentments suddenly dissolved and gone forever? No. Therefore, it didn't work. So, if it didn't work once, twice, 3 times, 4,000 times, a billion times, what makes you think it's going to work the next time? Oh, no, no, but you don't get it. I just need a release. I have this urge. I know, but, but if you, but is that medicine, is that behavior actually solving the problem? At some point, we choose again. You see, at some point, the person says, yeah, I see it. This has been going on in my life. And I'm saying this has been going on because I'm hoping that you can see that the same technology, if you will, applies to any behavior that we want to discontinue but haven't been able to. Overeating, anything. Today, we're talking about pornography and masturbation, but it really applies to other things as well. We have to see where it's coming from. And you realize, as an example, in parentheses, a person tells me, oh, yeah, I ate a bag of chips and now I'm overweight, that kind of thing. Okay, before you ate the bag of chips, what happened? Oh, my boss yelled at me. Again, it's an example. I'm not saying that always. But you realize that we even call it a comfort food. And so, why would I need a comfort food unless I felt uncomfortable? And the question then becomes in the realm of food: if I feel uncomfortable, does the food work? And the answer, and the reason why it becomes an addiction, is because in a very short term, it does work. In other words, I eat a box of cookies and I feel momentarily better. But long term, does it work? See, when we look at the bigger picture, this is what mindfulness is all about. When I look at the big picture of my life, does eating a box of cookie every night work to deal with my discomfort? Say, no, I feel more uncomfortable the next day. So it's not working. At some point, we choose again. When we make the choice, when we choose again, when we say, okay, that's not working, using my body, using my sexuality, using my brain to consume porn and masturbate as a way of dealing with past resentments, it's not working because my resentments are not only still there, but actually they're getting worse. They're getting worse. You may or may not realize this, but it gets worse because we begin to lose more opportunities. It begins to change your body, begins to change your relationships. You know, so by this stage of the process, when you have taken stock of your life, you realize that it's actually getting worse, not better. So it's not working. We choose again. Now, what do we do? We're still addicted to it. So what do we do? In other words, I realize what's going on, but I still can't stop it. Okay, now everything changes because I realize that there's a connection between how I'm feeling at this instant and my future urge to consume porn and masturbate. In other words, by now I've seen the relationship between the discomfort, the resentment, the pressure, the stress, whatever the case is for you. And how, because I can look at my journal now and I can say, dude, it's true. Every time this happens, every time I feel this way, about an hour later, about half an hour later, guess what? I feel like escaping and masturbating and doing porn. You can actually track this and realize pretty soon you have a map of what's going on in your life, and you realize that every time X happens, I feel like doing Y. Every time A, I do B. Every time, you know, you realize that it doesn't, it takes a couple, well, it's going to be different for every person. It depends on how mindful you are of yourself. It depends on how much awareness, how much personal sincerity you have with yourself. So it takes different amounts of time for different people, but it's going to take as long as it takes for you, and we cannot skip that step. Now you've chosen again, you have chosen again, and you want to deal with that in a different way. What medicine are we going to, I use medicine metaphorically, if the previous, if I felt, let's say, resentful, and I dealt with it by consuming porn and masturbating right before. So porn masturbation was my previous medicine, if you will, to deal with this resentment, right? Now I choose again, okay, this is not working for me. What new medicine am I going to use? What medicine? What can I do that's more effective than porn and masturbation to deal with that feeling? Because the one thing that by now, if you're following this, if you're doing this, the one thing that you will have noticed by now is that porn and masturbation has nothing to do with sexuality. It has nothing to do with your sexuality. It has nothing to do with your expression of your sexuality as a human being toward another. It has nothing to do with that. So we know that it has been used as a way of dealing with something that we don't know how else to deal with. Okay, good. So what can we substitute that with? And we substitute that with something called, it's so weird, man, because when I talk about this at the office, people tell me, dude, it cannot be that simple, it cannot work. People pay me good money to address this one-on-one at the office. And we do it every time. But we use something called forgiveness. In other words, we begin to work on forgiveness. We forgive ourselves and we forgive others. We work on forgiving, because forgiveness is a medicine that will work to eliminate the resentment. Porn and masturbation does not work for that. It's an ineffective medicine, but forgiveness is effective, it's efficacious, it does work. So then we do a bunch of exercises. When I say exercises, I mean like with hypnosis, with meditation, we do affirmations, visualizations. We hold on to a vibration. We learn a bunch of things that we do to achieve total forgiveness. And oh my gosh, lo and behold, experience shows. I've been doing this for 25 years. When we achieve that forgiveness, suddenly we don't feel like consuming pornography and masturbating. We feel like expressing our love toward another human being and sharing that moment. We feel like preserving the sanctity of that aspect of our lives to share with that special person. How weird, huh? So it did work, and it works every time. Now, there's another component to all of this that I'm debating. I'm debating whether or not to bring it up right now. And I'm gonna and I decided I'm going to leave this for another video, but I will tell you what it has to do with. When you consume pornography and masturbate, in some ways, deep within your mind, we are engaging in those behaviors at a mental level with the people that we are imagining and visualizing and so forth, And you have to ask yourself, why would I do this in secret alone looking at a screen? Why don't I go look for that person and try to do that with that person? And most of the time you would say, no, dude, are you crazy? That's crazy. I would never do that. Okay. Why would you never do that? Because you realize that there's something about that doesn't go with you. We never consume pornography and masturbate about the very same things that we can easily and normally do with other people. It's never that way. It's always about something extraneous. So why not do that physically? Say, oh, no, I can't do that. I know. Why not? Well, for various reasons, but somehow you've decided not to. That in of itself tells you something about the characters we're visualizing, we're seeing, watching, and it tells something about who you are as well. And I'm going to delve deeper into this. Let me know in the comments if you want to get into the metaphysics of pornography a little bit deeper. I'll be happy to explain all of this to you. But I think for today it's enough. Pay attention to this. Pay attention to when you have the urge, then log what happened the hour before the urge came up. This might take several weeks for you, right? Then when you draw connection between certain feelings or events or emotions or resentments and the urge to consume pornography, when you draw that connection, when you say every time A, I feel like B, when you get to that point, then do this thing called choosing again. Okay, what do you choose to do with your life? Again, I never told you what to do. Notice, I never told you do this or do that physically with your, in your behaviors. I never told you what behaviors to engage in. It's all a mental game. It's all a mindfulness journey. You see? Then you realize, okay, I do have a choice here. I no longer have to exercise my stunted sexuality in this way because I'm misusing it to deal with resentments and it's not working. I choose love instead. Then we start on the journey toward forgiveness. So we can discuss more of this, and there are several branches that we can dig into here. I'm going to ask you a couple of favors. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, and put your comments below, because according to your feedback, I'm going to record the following videos, because there are many directions we can go into, many directions. So you will determine where you want this conversation to go. But I'm so happy to be having this conversation with you, because so many people call me regarding pornography addiction, and it's such a big deal for some people. Some people think it's normal, it's okay, whatever. Again, I'm not trying to convince anybody that they should or shouldn't do whatever they want to do. That's not the point. I'm talking only to the person who, for whatever reason, has decided to quit and haven't been able to. That we're calling an addiction, just that. And that person I can help. And you can help that person as well by placing your questions and comments in the comment section below this video so that we can drive this conversation into those directions. Mega blessings to all of you. And I'm so looking forward to your feedback so we can continue. Okay? Thank you so much.